Ah, royal romance. It's the kind of story that has made Walt Disney billions and fascinated gossip columnists since the crown was established. And while real-life takes of courtly romance involving kings, queens, princes, and princesses tend to feature less talking mice, they're all pretty unique love stories in their own right. So, today, we're answering the romantic question, how did all the British royal couples meet? But before we take a walk down the aisle, why don't you walk on over to the subscribe button? Then let us know in the comments what other origin stories you want to hear about. For now, let's have a divinely ordained meet cute. Before her husband's passing in 2021, Queen Elizabeth II had been the longest married British monarch in history, spending 73 years with the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip. The pair first met at a wedding when they were children and did not properly connect until many years later. Elizabeth was 13 when she first started to fancy Philip after the 18-year-old gave her a tour at the Royal Naval College in 1939. Boats are apparently romantic enough to close a troubling age gap. 2 months later, World War II began and drastically changed the royals' lives. Elizabeth took on more duties while Philip served as a Royal Navy officer. The kibosh had been put on the relationship before it started. Or had it? Despite being kept apart, the budding romance between Elizabeth and Philip remained strong, with the two writing letters and sending photos all throughout the war, and they were finally married in 1947. Before she was Princess of Wales, Diana was simply known as the sister of the girl who was dating the Prince of Wales, which is a tough thing to be famous for. Even though Diana Spencer grew up on the Queen's estate at Sandringham, she did not meet Prince Charles for quite some time. When Diana was 16, her older sister Sarah began dating Charles. He was invited to his girlfriend's home in 1977, which is where he ran into Diana, who, admittedly, had a crush on old Chuck. Being a prince goes a long way. Sarah and Charles' relationship eventually dissolved, and a few years later, Charles put the moves on the younger of the sisters. The result was an elaborate fairy tale wedding in 1981, which made Diana one of the most famous modern princesses of all time. The marriage eventually ended in divorce in 1996, with Diana suffering her tragic car accident just 1 year later. Diana was famously the first wife of Prince Charles, but it was Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, who kept snatching his attention. The two happened to be at the same polo match in 1970, where they really hit it off. Camilla even flirted with Charles by stating her great-grandmother was the mistress of Charles's great-great-grandfather. That line gets him every time. The pair dated for many months until the Royal Navy sent Charles overseas. When he got back to Britain, Camilla had moved on to Andrew Parker Bowles, whom she married in 1973. 8 years later, Charles would marry Diana, but reports suggest that Charles and Camilla reconnected and began an affair in 1986. Charles and Camilla would go on to divorce their spouses and be with each other to make up for all the lost time. The two were married in 2005, and Andrew Parker Bowles moved on to Anne Robinson, the host of a game show The Weakest Link, so hopefully he didn't read too much into that. Prince William and his wife Kate Middleton are best known as being Prince and Princess of Wales, but they started things out as college sweethearts. After they both finished a gap year, William traveled to Africa and South Africa while Kate headed to Chile and Italy. When they arrived at the University of St. Andrews in 2001, they were stationed in the same first-year dorm, St. Salvator's Hall. After moving into an on-campus flat with some friends, Kate and Willie began an on-again, off-again romance. After a high-profile relationship, the two tied the knot in perhaps the most famous wedding in 2011. Sorry, Rachel Weisz and Daniel Craig. We're sure your wedding was fine. Diana's youngest son, Prince Harry, was no stranger to the dating scene before he met American actor Meghan Markle. He likely knew about her acting from the TV shows Fringe and Suits, and she likely knew about Harry because, well, he was Prince Harry. The guy's face was everywhere. The former television star visited London back in July of 2016 and was set up on a blind date with the Queen's grandson thanks to a mutual friend. The two hit it off so well that less than a month later, the two were traveling to Botswana together. Usually that's the type of thing you wait 2 months for. Their love blossomed and they were eventually married at St. George's Chapel in May 2018. and lived happily ever after without any controversy whatsoever, and certainly no talk of stripping the Duke and Duchess of Sussex of their royal titles. Oh, wait. All the king's horses and all the king's men helped Anne and Mark get together, my friend. Anne, the eldest daughter of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, was the first of the royal babies to get married. She met Captain Mark Phillips and bonded with him over their shared love of horses. In fact, Anne competed in the equestrian events at the Montreal Olympics, while Phillips headed to the Olympics twice with the British horse riding team. In Mexico City in 1968, the two separately attended an event to honor the Olympic team. Sparks flew, a relationship began, and the two were eventually wedded in 1973. Their love story would meet its end in 1992 after a slightly messy public life. In fact, Anne is the first member of the royal family to be convicted of a crime, pleading guilty to 2 counts of losing control of her dog in 2002. Royalty, they're just like us. While still married to Captain Mark Phillips, Anne decided to travel up the naval ranks when she met Vice Admiral Sir Timothy Lawrence in 1986. Anne's marriage to Mark was rocky ever since Captain Phillips had fathered a child with a teacher in New Zealand, which is generally not something you're supposed to do when you're already married. The relationship declined after that incident, with the two rarely being seen together in public. Anne and Lawrence met on the boat Britannia, the royal family's private yacht, while he was serving as equerry and navigational officer. Shortly after meeting, the affair began, followed by a full-blown royal scandal after Timothy's love letters to Anne became public in 1989. After Anne's divorce from Phillips was finalized in 1992, the princess married Lawrence in Scotland. But did she remember to keep her dog on a leash? Queen Elizabeth II's third child, Prince Andrew, had known Sarah Fergie Ferguson since the two were very young, but they did not stay in each other's childhoods long. Dang, that's so 2000 and late. Once they had reached adulthood, a matchmaking scheme worthy of a Hallmark movie occurred. In a guest starring role, Princess Diana invited Sarah to lunch at Windsor Castle for the Royal Ascot races, and anyone who was anyone went to the Windsor Castle for the Royal Ascot races. Oh, and before you get confused, Royal Ascot is just the name of the horse racetrack. They're not literally racing those fancy ties. Diana made sure that Sarah scored a seat next to her brother-in-law, the Duke of York, and the rest is history. Andrew and Sarah tied the knot a year later in 1986. Though their marriage ended in divorce, the two remain close friends and even still live together. So that London Bridge isn't going down anytime soon. The youngest child of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip was also the last of the children to get married. Prince Edward was born in 1964 and first met his future bride, Sophie Rhys-Jones, in 1993. The two worked together to plan a charity event at the Queen's Tennis Club, and probably had all sorts of wacky mishaps and misunderstandings one could expect from a royal rom-com. They dated for several years before marrying in 1999, officially becoming the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh in the process. Guess in tennis, sometimes love does win. Let's talk about Peter and Autumn, the first married couple among Queen Elizabeth II's grandchildren. Peter is the eldest grandson, born to Princess Anne and Captain Mark Phillips. He met Autumn Kelly at the Montreal Grand Prix in 2003, and the pair started dating shortly thereafter. In a bald-faced, high-concept rom-com move, Peter wasn't too keen on revealing his royal birthright and avoided telling her when they initially began dating. That's right, he was a secret prince. The Hallmark Channel would be proud. It wasn't until Autumn watched a television program about the royal family that she learned the truth. Apparently, his ruse did not affect their relationship, and the pair married in 2008. Princess Anne has one daughter, Zara Phillips. Zara was in Sydney, Australia in 2003 as part of her gap year when she met rugby player Mike Tyndall. Apparently, if you want to snag a royal partner, you need to take a gap year in college. The 25-year-old Tyndall was participating in the Rugby World Championships, which is the perfect way to look cool in front of royalty. Actually, it's a good way to look cool in front of anyone. Have you seen rugby? The two eventually crossed paths at a bar, and a relationship developed soon thereafter. The young lovebirds were then married in Edinburgh in 2011. And we're sure Tyndall's rugby boys behaved respectfully and reasonably, and not a single chair was broken. Princess Eugenie of York, the daughter of Prince Andrew, threw what can only be described as the second most important royal wedding of 2018. That probably stings. Eugene met the 24-year-old Jack Brooksbank in 2010 at Verbier, a fancy ski resort in Switzerland. In the princess's own words, it was love at first sight. Eugenie, or Giacchini, dated for several years before finally taking the wedding plunge in 2018. Their wedding fell just a few short months after Eugenie's cousin Harry married Meghan Markle, and was even performed in the same building. They probably saved a ton of money by just reusing all the old decor, although they presumably made a new cake. The royal family is really budget conscious, right? So what do you think? Enjoy learning the origins of these royal romances? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, check out some of these other videos from Our Weird History.